Hi, everyone. We're back with a new episode of With Love Soleil. And what I want us to sit with today is the idea of fear. So I think that fear is something that really inhibits so many people from living out their fullest greatness, their fullest expression, because the truth of the matter is, on an energetic perspective, fear is the opposite of love. So when you live in a fearful state or when you feel fear, it closes your heart off to also simultaneously feeling immense or powerful love. And I think that's why fear has been used for so long as a tactic from the government, the powers that be, fear programming to control people. Because when someone's heart is open and their mind is open, they're the most uncontrollable of all. They're the rebels of society, right? They can't be controlled by fear. They are sort of in some ways untouchable by the tactics of those in power who try to suppress their people or, quiet the power of the people. Because as all of the religious texts talk about, many of the spiritual texts, love is the core of who we are. Love is the most powerful, energetic position to play and to be in. So any tactic that is used to suppress or quiet love in our own experience and in our lives is going to ultimately prevent us from being our most, excellent selves. So I think that addressing the fears that you have in your life and addressing the ways that fear controls your life is so key to really taking your power back. And in the conversation around self-mastery, reducing fear to nothing is so liberating. It's like the ultimate freedom is to live without any fear. And, for me personally, I would say that my mom really raised me in the understanding and discernment, the difference between what is fear and what is actually like the danger response in your body. Because by all means, that is never to say that there's not things in life, that create a danger response in your body where you're starting to feel what one might consider fear. But in actuality, it is your body informing you, your spirit informing you, the energetics of your experience, telling you that there's danger present, right? And, I know, especially as a woman, I'm sure men have the same, but I can only speak for the woman's experience. But as an intuitive woman, I'm very aware of that. And I'm available to it, right? It's not like I'm trying to cut that off or quiet that in any way. And I think the discernment, though, is to recognize when you're actually in a danger response, when your body and your energetics is informing you that there's perhaps danger around, or, it's guiding and steering you towards even the decisions that you make. That's, something completely different than living from fear. So I think it's really important to make this discernment and figure out what this looks like and find that feeling within yourself of what's fear and what's danger response. And, going back to what I was saying, I was really fortunate to have a mother who really helped me discern between the two, which, having discerned, really eliminated the fear response at all in my life. In fact, most people ask me, what am I afraid of? I honestly have no answer for that because, and it sounds sort of whimsical, but I don't feel fear. I don't really feel like fearful of anything. I'm very aware when I'm if I'm having a danger response in my body. Obviously I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to change the scene a little bit. And I'm going to listen to that, because sometimes even if I'm, say traveling, I've traveled so much by myself. I think that's a part of the reason why I have such little fear, because I've been in plenty brand new countries all by myself, and to many women that's fearful for them. It's like uncomfortable as a woman to travel by yourself. And on some level, I understand that, right? But I trust my danger response. I trust even in booking the trip, if there's like any sort of like not even resistance, because it, to me, sometimes what we resist, we need the most. So again, there's another discernment there. Is this resistance? Is this fear? Or is this actually my body kind of informing me that maybe this isn't the best trip to take by myself? And all are possible, right? And there's not right or wrong. So it's a real willingness to discern between the various responses that we are having at any given moment to taking the trip or moving or, whatever, any decision you're making, what are you feeling towards it? And can you discern? It's so nuanced. It takes a lot of mastery to really be able to discern, because it can be difficult to say, is this actually just fear? Am I in my own way? Right? Or is my body actually informing me that this isn't the move for me to make? If there's, danger comes in many forms, if even just a lower vibrational fit for you, or, just not somewhere that your spirit is calling to go, or whatever it is. But there's a lot of discernment to be had. And so ultimately, and ideally, I think we all reduce fear. Fear is really more than anything in the mind. I think that's one of the ways that can really help us discern between fear and other experiences. Is fear is going to be the mind kind of looping over like why something what could possibly go wrong, right? There's like so much fear in the worrying and the concerning ourselves. It doesn't feel like you're in your body. It feels like you're in your mind, like looping over negative ideas and ideals that are preventing you from making any given decision. So if you feel like you're in that loop, then sit with it. Ask yourself, what are you actually afraid of here? And and that will help you kind of find the discernment between, is this fear that's happening, or is this actually my spirit, or am I being guided to make a different decision? But I think it's really key. It's really key to address and confront the fear that you hold over your decisions, over your life, over anything, especially something like traveling, say, because traveling is so liberating, so freeing. In fact, I was just talking to a friend earlier today, and we were, enjoying the high of travel together, because it really is that. It is such a expansive experience to go to a new place with totally different types of people who live a totally different type of life than you do, and speak literally a different language, run on totally different morals and principles and everything else. And it really expands your spirit. It really expands your vantage point, your context for life. We were saying, even to go to a third world country where people make, $1 a day, they live off $1 a day. And they relate to their lives and to the world in such a different way than we do here in the States, right? And, I know for me, I was in Costa Rica one time, and I had this conversation with this man, and we were kind of randomly talking about his shoes. I remember him kind of having on some sandals that were, they looked like they were nearing the end of their lifespan. And somehow we got on the topic of them. And I remember asking him, "Oh, are those your only pair of shoes?" And he looked at me like I just asked him something totally crazy. And he was like, "Why would I have another pair of shoes?" And I didn't have an answer. He was right. He was right. It was like, why would you need really ultimately more than one pair of shoes? And things like that will stand out when you travel. You'll have these experiences that really just, like, one sentence from someone like this man, that really just shifted me in many ways, because he was so right. And for my brain as an American with stuff to like even think that just felt so silly in that moment. And it really collapsed any type of materialism or consumerism in that timeline that I had in my life at all, in any way that I, thought stuff was cool. And as I've spoken on here before, and definitely now a minimalist in part because of that conversation, but also just because, I don't need a lot, and I don't keep stuff, just feels like it takes up more space than it needs to. I like just to live very minimally. But I say that to say that, doing things that might initially kind of bring a fear response are sometimes exactly what you need, and so that's why it's really important to look at what is fear and what is danger, because you will always know when you're in danger. And if you can listen and hear for that and remove yourself from the situation, or adjust your settings, or call someone, or whatever it is, when you actually are in danger, then you can rely on that a lot differently. Then you realize, oh, actually what's happening here is fear. I'm not actually in danger. I'm just in my own way. And because that's what fear is. So much of the time, it's literally you in your own way. And if we reduce fear all the way down to the very core, what is the core fear? I would say that it's death. Fear of death, fear of losing our lives is the fundamental core fear. And many fears are born from that fear. So the fear of doing something, that's even why someone may not travel by themselves, right? Something might happen, they could get killed, right? That's like where the brain always wants to go, is that kind of fundamental core fear of death. So to me, and what really helped me was to repair my relationship to death in general, because why would I fear death? Why would I fear death? I think that if you really sit with that, it's like, well, then we don't know what's going to happen. Well, I believe in all that happens and everything that happens in perfect time. So I'm not going to fear that as a part of my journey just as much as I wouldn't fear anything else. And I trust so much in a higher power, in my path. I trust in my life that, if and when that time comes, I know that that's what it is, right? Maybe my day is already written in stone. So what am I going to do to fear that day and live my life fearing that day? If nothing else, knowing that that's possible makes me want to live even more, bigger, louder, brighter, as much as I possibly can, knowing that we do live a finite life in this human experience, and you can only do so much in this human timeline. And so I want to do as much as I possibly can. I want to help as many people as I possibly can. So I'm reducing my fear by eliminating my fear of death. And another piece of that honestly really helped, and I think this was my mother's kind of final teaching around fear, was watching her transition. She had no fear. It was so magical. Honestly, it was like, just to know she was like, we both kind of talked about it in her final days and weeks in the context of her graduating. And, obviously me as her daughter, like there's also this simultaneous, like absolute tragedy that's happening. And she knew that and was present with that. But we could also just be like, you're solving the mystery, right? You're solving the mystery of graduating. You're on to the next, whatever that means. And I think because she knew she had lived such a beautiful divine life, because she, in some ways I could tell at the point of her exit, she felt sort of complete. There was no fear. There was nothing to fear. There was no worry. She was just rejoining the all, the God, the creator. And I think when you clear out your fear of death, it really opens up so much more space and bandwidth for you to fully live. I really do, because then you're not making decisions based on fearing the end. You're making decisions based on soaking the most juice you can get out of life in every moment and everything that you do, impacting as many people as you possibly can. Because another major fear, like, of course, is what are people going to think? How's someone going to respond to me living in my excellence and my greatness? You really can't care about that. And I'm talking to myself when I say that, because this has been one of my major lessons in my life, is learning how to not care what people think. I still struggle with that a little bit. If you notice, even on my Twitter, my messaging is still pretty inclusive of all. And, I try not to I don't talk too much about current affairs and stuff. My angle and my truth around it is that I try as much as I can to stay in the solution, because I recognize there are plenty of problems. I know it's important to highlight problems and times. But for me, the energy, the winning strategy is to remain in the solution. And if I can just bring everybody up here, we can actually have conversation and find fundamental solutions instead of sort of mulling over in the problems. Now, it's not to bypass the problems. I get it. There's lots of craziness going on in this world. And I do think it's important that we speak up and we stand on something that we believe in. But it's difficult. It's difficult to stand on something you believe in, knowing that there will be plenty of people who think you're X, Y, and Z, or an ist of some sort, or whatever it is. My worst thing I get called is an ableist, because I believe in everybody's power. And I don't think people are limited by their disability or anything else. I think that we can all find a sense of power, no matter what that looks like for each person individually. But for some, to me, me speaking in that way is ableist, or I'm not trauma informed. And I hear what they're saying, but I also believe that I'm not going to meet you in victimhood, because I don't stay there. I know that place. I've been there. I visit sometimes, but I don't think that victimhood is helpful for your own self-excellence. So I see you, I get it. But my thing is, let's meet above that. I know your power too much to meet you in victimhood and placate that. I'm I get it. I see what you've been through. I also know that means you have significant room for much more power. And I want to see what that looks like. And I want us to talk about how to get there. So, there's a lot of levels to what fear looks like and how it comes to be, and it is not easy in society to have a powerful voice and not feel any fear around it. It takes major, major courage, and kudos to all of the people who have big voices and are willing to stand on something and be disliked and be mocked and be hated and ridiculed and everything else, especially in this super matrix society where, everything is inverted. So if you even just speak the truth, you're a major rebel. And, I think you have to, right? You have to maintain the light, to maintain heaven on earth. You have to have a voice. You do have to speak. You have to stand for something, and people won't like it. And that's, that to me says you're probably standing on something if you have people who don't like what you have to say, because you're rubbing against the comfort and normalcy of the delusion and illusion. So there's a lot of ways that fear presents itself, and there's a lot of ways that fear prevents us from being in our fullest, most massive, most empowered expression. And so I think that reducing fear in your mind, in your life, in your decision making is such a major, major key in really taking your power back and really finding personal agency and sovereignty, and, deciding to do things according to what's your highest excitement, what's going to open your heart the most, what's going to bring the most light into your life, versus like what could go wrong, right? Like that's such a fear program to think of, like taking a trip and immediately what could go wrong, or looking up like, even the statistics of how many people die, or, like whatever rabbit hole you go down, that's fear-based. So when we look at this, and when we look at reducing fear in our lives, what I encourage you to do is to just be aware, just become aware of when you start to feel fear, ask it, like, challenge it, ask it, like, where is this coming from? Is this a danger response? And there will be danger responses. So it's not to negate those, because that's an important part of your spirit and your body's ability to communicate to you when something is not right for you. But I would say majority of the time when we feel something that feels like a fragrance of fear, it's probably actually fear. And as soon as fear comes in, the heart shuts down, your processes shut down, you're kind of in a fight or flight mode versus being in like full, joyful expression. So we want to challenge that. We want to challenge the ways that society programs us to fear. Like it is true spiritual warfare to plague one's own society with fear. And I think especially, in the US, we're definitely the governments, the systems bring fear and kind of control the masses with fear. So to live without fear, to say, I'm not going to be controlled by programming that tries to reduce me, is number one. And then from there, you notice how you do it to yourself. So how do you reduce yourself? By worrying or concerning, right? Because anything you're thinking about in some way, you are, attuning to the vibration of. So we also want to be aware of not manifesting the things we literally don't want. So, we're becoming aware of where our mind is going, how our mind is thinking about something. If it is fearful, if you're worrying, concerning over and over and over again, kill the noise. Figure out a way to placate that, replace it with an affirmation, whatever you need to do to kill that noise, because it's not helping you at all. Fear is very rarely helpful. The danger response is 100% helpful. Fear is not. Fear is only going to keep you from being your best self. So to challenge fear, to identify fear and to challenge it is such a code for becoming your best self and on the path of self-mastery and on the spiritual path. We want to close out fear. We want to hold major space for our body to communicate danger, or when something is not right, or something being off. Like, yes to all of those. No to fear just for the sake of fear. And there's too much of that. And we take a stand against fear by taking a stand against it within our own lives and within ourselves, within our minds. So as you go about your life and you make decisions and you decide how you're going to move and what you're going to do, notice what place you're coming from. If it's like, I'm just all about my highest excitement, my heart is wide open, my mind is open, I want life to just, expand me as much as I possibly can. I want to live my life to the fullest, like all of that. Yes, go every direction that energy is going to take you. If you have even just a idea of doing something different, or taking a trip, or, going out on a limb a little bit in some capacity that might not be normally totally comfortable for you. And you're like, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? I shouldn't go by myself. Or all of a sudden you're spiraling in a rabbit hole of fear. That's when you want to look at that, because you're really only preventing yourself from living your fullest life. And fear will absolutely do that. Fear is such a plague. Fear is such a plague to personal excellence. It is, because whatever it is, fear of failure, fear of risk, fear of something bad happening, fear of X, Y, and Z, all of those things are going to keep you from taking the risk. And personal excellence is founded on risk taking. And again, risk taking being like this, being something that feels good and exciting, and you don't even really fully know how something's going to work out, but you feel the readiness in your spirit for it to take the next step, whatever that looks like. Again, kind of even the context of making the move, even before you're like it's fully formulated how that's going to look or what's going to come next, but you just know that it's right. Don't let fear dilute what you know. Don't let fear quiet down the power of joy in creating your highest life experience. Challenge fear. Challenge your fear of death. Meet with your fear of death. Ask what you're actually afraid of, and clear a lot of that out, because that's going to be the main route to the fear that exists in your life. So, make peace with all of it. And then anytime you find yourself worrying or concerned or what ifing, challenge it. It's not necessary. You're just in the way. The mind is in the way at that point. So if we can kill that noise, cancel it out, trust what you know, trust yourself, trust that, when you make this trip or make this decision or go out on this limb, that just you showing up is going to be enough, and you're going to know what to do, and you're going to navigate it in a way that will keep you safe and in power. You have to really trust yourself to eliminate fear. So replace the fear programming, the fear thinking, the fear mongering that you do to yourself with, I trust myself. I know that I'm going to be good. I know that I'm going to be able to navigate anything that life brings me. And I know that life will only bring me what I need. And so I trust both of those things collectively, that whatever happens, whatever life experience comes my way, I'll be ready. I don't need to fear anything. I got God, I got me, I got my life. I have my own timeline. I have my own destiny, and I don't want to prevent destiny, and I don't want to fight it. I just want to allow it in. I want to call it in as powerfully and as, substantially as possible, so that when I get done, when I do meet the day that may be written in stone or not, that my life is complete, I will have lived every single inch of it to the absolute fullest. And I will look back and I feel good. I feel complete. I'm telling you, as someone who has witnessed someone who's felt complete, that's like the only way you'd ever want to go out, is just with I did it. I did the damn thing, right? Really knowing and believing in what you left on this earth plane. So I hope that helps some of you. I know that fear is a big topic and much larger than, what I've just done justice, but hopefully it helps you just to start to challenge it in your life, look at where it's stemming from, and start to live, replace fear with just the massiveness of love and trust and faith in who you are, what you have created, and the life that's just waiting to unfold for you. All right, you guys, let me know what you think. Also, as always, let me know if you have any topic requests, anything you want to talk about. Anything at all. I'm here. Love you guys. See you next time.